Hello everybody, good evening and welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your Sunday night show on the United Stand as we talk about Erik ten Hag's concern about player power, and not necessarily the player power you might think, not necessarily about leaks or dissent or mutiny, more about their mentality, their weakness. We're going to be talking about that. Story coming out from the Mirror, which is always, as we know, for the last 12 months, been quite close to Ten Hag, where they're saying that Ten Hag is worried about the mental fragility of his players, especially when when things are going wrong. Really not a surprise, but ultimately, Malps in the chat says Erik ten Hag is not going to make Christmas at the moment. I did mention that this morning. I really do think we have to open our eyes up to the fact that this manager isn't safe. I know none of us want him to go, but there is a point where, it's our worst ever start to a Premier League season. And if we keep losing games, then any Man United manager should get the sack. So, he's got a problem. He has got a problem. We'll be discussing that. Also, apparently from the same article, there are dressing room concerns about Marcus Rashford and his body language, especially in games when he's looking rather despondent. What is that all about? I've seen a few people today in the mainstream, pinning this on Rashford, disgusted at Rashford. You know what my personal thoughts are on that. And I think scapegoating one player, individualising one player, we're better than that as a fan base. I think simpletons think that if you criticise Rashford, you're part of the reason that he's getting criticised. That's not how it works. Other people have been criticised as well. There's a way to deal with Rashford without individualising it. Also, an update on Martinez, on his injury. It does not reflect well on Manchester United's fitness department. Effectively, his foot never healed and he's got to have another operation. How we haven't picked that up, I don't know. Apparently, he was taking painkillers to play games at the start of the season. His foot hadn't healed properly and he's got to have another operation. Pre-season fast, no other team had that schedule, said Rory. I also want to talk a little bit about Jadon Sancho and Rasmus Hojlund. Again, I've seen some criticism of Hojlund, which I find ridiculous. I want to talk about Hojlund, what his first few weeks at the club have been, and why it's not really surprising when you drop a striker into a team that doesn't know how to play with a striker, you will struggle. I remember saying 18 months ago, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer could have bought Erling Haaland, and everybody thinks we would have won the league. We wouldn't. We wouldn't have won the league with Harry Kane. We wouldn't have won the league with Erling Haaland. We didn't win the league with Cristiano Ronaldo. In fact, we were very shit with Cristiano Ronaldo because we don't know how to play with a striker. So lots to get into on the show tonight. How does the Erik ten Hag era compare to Van Gaal and Mourinho, says Robbie. I think it's a really good question, actually, to start the show. I want to get into these comments about Ten Hag's concerns about the mentality of the players because I think it's very relevant. But the bottom line is, I said it this morning, there is next to no difference between this team this season and this team last season. Apart from the fact last season we could defend and rely on moments. We're not defending well. We're conceding goals. And as we know, when this team concedes a goal, it bottles it, which is exactly what this article is talking about. I would like to say if Erik ten Hag leaves before the Glazers, it's time to riot. Enough is enough, says Ari. I am not pinning Rashford, but I do think he's a Glazers product. United can't progress with him at all. I do want to talk about Rashford in a little bit. I want to pose the question why he's not universally loved in this fan base. What is it about Rashford that really splits the fan base? I'm somewhat confused myself. But look, lots to get into. Has Erik ten Hag written the season off at this point, says Chris. Well, let me start off with this. So the article I want to talk about tonight that's come out is the one where the Mirror are basically saying, they're talking about dressing room sources. We know that they're pretty close to Ten Hag. And they're basically saying that the dressing room is concerned about Marcus Rashford's attitude, especially on the pitch. And also that Ten Hag is concerned and worried about the mental weakness of this team, especially when things don't go right. Now, look, people straight away are going to deflect that back onto Erik ten Hag and say, well, you're the manager, you've got to sort it out. But on the other hand, I would say, we talk a lot, don't we? We talk a lot about Manchester United. That's what we do. And in that talking a lot, we have said many, many a time that this team has a mental problem. It does. And it's not just last season. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer got his arse handed on a plate at Old Trafford. Liverpool went down into second gear at Old Trafford in the second half just before he got sacked. Leicester, Watford. This has been going on for a long time. The media will try and put it all on Ten Hag's doorstep, but the reality is that this has been going on at United for a long time. That the inability to deal with pressure. Now, I'm going to hit the nail on the head because obviously other people will aim it at the fans anyway. But Mohammed says Liverpool just released a statement on suing referee association. Lovely stuff, Mohammed. I'd like to see that happen, to be honest. And Mike Calvert says, hi, Mark. I was at the game. It was shocking to watch live how despondent Rashi actually is. Something infecting the squad from a mentality point of view. Well, we're going to talk about that in a moment, Mike. And also, Red Army says, United didn't defend well last season. They sat back. Well, they did defend well because they got 17 clean sheets. So, I mean, however they did it, whether it was pleasing on the eye, they did defend well because they got 17 clean sheets. You might not think it was easy on the eye, but they did. But, going back to the mentality issue of Manchester United, and I can see the Sharks on Bruno too, singling him out because he's the captain, says the Inquisition. Well, yeah, you have to take that on board. I don't think singling anybody out is the right thing to do here. But when we talk about the lack of mentality at Manchester United, I almost feel that the idiot response is going to be the fans. We got the blame for Maguire from England. Maguire wasn't being spoken about before the international break. On the international break, he gets booed. Southgate blames Man United fans. Brendan Rodgers blames Man United fans. Maguire comes back to Man United duty, doesn't get picked, no one's talking about him, but we get the blame. And I imagine we'll get the blame again because Man United players can't deal with the pressure of Man United fans putting it on them and boo-hoo, let's get a bloody violin out, it's not their fault. I know they're on 200-300 grand a week, but you know what, the pressure's just too much. Absolute bullshit, and I'll call it out before anyone tries to do it. This is not on Man United fans. This is not a pressure issue. This is a recruitment issue. I don't see this thing happening at Arsenal. I don't see it happening at Real Madrid. I don't see it happening at Barcelona. I don't see it happening at Bayern Munich, and I don't see it happening at Manchester City. That's not to say that Barcelona haven't had a bad season, but they get rid of this shit and they bring the right players in. This is a mentality issue at Manchester United. I don't need to individualise this. You can pick whatever player you want. But in a general sense, in that Man United squad, probably for about 8 years, there is a problem whereby they are not really Manchester United players. They can't deal with the expectation of being a Manchester United player. They don't understand the identity or DNA of being a Manchester United player. They go 1-0 behind and they absolutely bottle it. We've seen it in the last 2 games at Old Trafford. Brighton and Palace, we had more possession at 0-0. We concede a goal and we have less. That's our response. Hide. Don't want the ball. That's been the problem. How are you 2-0 down at Anfield and it becomes 7? And it happens all the time. There is a weak mentality. So when I see an article like today coming from a good source around Ten Hag that he's concerned about the mental fragility of these players, what he's basically saying is he thinks he's got a dressing room that's got a few bottlers in it. And he's right. And I know who the players are and you know who the players are. But the bottom line is this is not about the pressure of being a Manchester United player. I don't think Roy Keane or David Beckham or Cristiano Ronaldo or Wayne Rooney or Nemanja Vidic or Steve Bruce or anybody else, when they lost a few games, were like, oh, I can't believe the pressure I'm under. It's a mentality thing. It's a recruitment thing. We have consistently recruited the wrong players and they don't befit the fan base, the shirt or the aura of a Manchester United player. Our identity does not match what we are meant to be as a football club. Liverpool this season have been tremendous. They've bought McAllister, Szoboszlai, I can't remember who else they bought actually, but they've instantly embraced what the mentality of that football club is. Man United's recruitment is just dreadful. And we have collected a number of players that have been there for quite a while who do not have the right mentality. And every time a new player comes in, they'll be infected by that dressing room. And that's the problem. And that's what Ten Hag is feeding out there. He has concerns about the mental fragility of that squad. And he's absolutely correct to have it. because we all know when the chips are down, they bottle it. They're not capable. We very rarely get back into a game when we go behind. I mean, I'm sure somebody in the chat can give us some evidence of it, but I can't think of many games where we go behind and we come back. We're absolutely dreadful at it. Hi, Mark. I saw it took Neville less than 24 hours to go back on his VAR comments on Twitter. Do you think Sky told him to tone it down, says Bradders? I don't take a lot of notice of him, mate. So I don't know what he's contradicting himself of. Roy Keane's comments from a few years ago ring through again. Leopards don't change their spots when it comes to certain players at the club, says Dylan. But this is going to be very interesting, because how does Erik ten Hag deal with this problem? His job is in the hands of these players who are with him, but even the Martinez injury is a problem. He's the only left-footed centre-back that we have, because Luke Shaw's injured. So, that is a 3-month injury at a time where Luke Shaw is injured for 3 months. I don't see this getting any better. I think it's going to be a massive problem. And my major concern at the moment is not whether the Glazers are going to sell, because that could take months and months and months. My major concern at the moment is, can Ten Hag survive these next few months? Can Ten Hag get to Christmas? Can Ten Hag get to the point where the club sells itself? Because I'm worried. I am really worried at the moment, because I didn't need this article to come out today to realise that these players can lose any game of football. They can literally lose any game of football. If they switch off and play the blame game, then there are really big problems there. A lot of this I said this morning, and I don't want to go over it, but the cold, harsh truth is that there is a big mentality issue at Manchester United, because we've somehow collected a group of players that just do not suit Manchester United. I mean, I don't really want to name players, but you look at where we bought them from and you go, why did we pay that money? Why did we give that wage? They were never, ever, ever good enough to play for this football club. And the recruitment is sunk us, really. Surely if Erik ten Hag has lost the dressing room, he has to go. Well, he hasn't lost the dressing room, Majak. I don't think anybody said he's lost the dressing room. In fact, quite the contrary. He hasn't lost the dressing room, but he's concerned about the mentality of the players. I don't think that's... this is the education of football, isn't it? You'll read that story and go, oh, Ten Hag's turning on the players by saying that they're bottlers. I think the players know they're bottlers. I don't think Ten Hag is losing the dressing room, and I don't think he's slagging the players off. He said this in public after the Liverpool loss in March. There is a mentality problem within this football club. He's not sort of saying, you are shit, you are bottlers. But what he is saying is, the reason we don't succeed is because there's a mentality issue here. That's not a reason for the players to turn on the manager, and they're not. But it's, how do you solve that? It's like getting somebody to do 100 kick-ups who can't do 2. It's a long process, and he hasn't got time. He just hasn't got time. MUINO equals Manchester United in name only. We are like the football equivalent of the Kardashians, says Gurevs. I can see the Sharks on Bruno as well, says the Inquisition. The second part of the story was that, and it's from the same journalist in the same article, the second part of the story is that the dressing room is concerned around Rashford's body language on the pitch, with him looking despondent and detached. Now, this is where, for me, I find it a problem, because I'm sure you're going to have a lot to say, and some people want to throw it on Bruno as well. I really do think, having done this myself, it's the answer of a fool, really, to individualise this problem. I don't understand how a Manchester United fan who knows what's going on at Manchester United, and I don't need to use the G word, the Glazers, but I don't understand how a Manchester United fan could honestly sit there and be going, it's Rashford's fault, or it's Bruno's fault. I don't get that. And I've seen people on the media today do that. Individualise this issue and put it onto Marcus Rashford. Absolutely true. Again, I think this article is well sourced, because Ten Hag would quite rightly have concerns about the mentality of this team when it goes behind and how the heads drop. That's true. And Ten Hag would quite rightly have concerns about Marcus Rashford's body language, because we've all seen it over the last few weeks. But this mantra or theme of going, Marcus Rashford's a disgrace at the moment, he's the issue, he's the reason Man United aren't doing well, that does not reflect well on the people saying that, because that sort of basically says you don't understand your own football club. If you think Marcus Rashford is a disgrace and is the issue at Manchester United right now, I could give you 50 reasons why you're wrong. But the main ones are Marcus Rashford isn't the problem at Manchester United. He may well be an issue, but even if you solve that issue, you can solve that issue twice as well. You can drop him, or he'll start playing well. If Marcus Rashford stops playing well, I don't think we're going to challenge Arsenal or Liverpool. And if Marcus Rashford gets dropped and someone else comes in, I don't think we're going to challenge Arsenal or Liverpool. So how can he be the problem? He might be an issue, but I don't think he's the problem. And the second thing as well with Rashford is, why is he the issue? Does he pick the team? Does he keep himself on the pitch? I love Ten Hag and I want him to do well. But if Rashford's an issue, it's not Rashford you need to be moaning about. It's the manager. The manager's got the power to drop him. The manager's got the power to make him play better. The manager has to drop Rashford. If Marcus Rashford's a disgrace and he's the reason we're not doing well, then it's Erik Ten Hag's job to drop him. But I disagree with it anyway. I don't think Marcus Rashford is the issue at Manchester United. I think he just needs dropping. I think there is an issue with his body language. It's poor. I can't remember what game it was where I was doing a watch along and people were going mad. It might have been Bayern Munich. He was throwing his hands up. It might have been Brighton actually. There's been a few, but his body language on the pitch is abysmal. It's abysmal, and I agree with that. Some people have said it's because he's good friends with Jadon Sancho. Well, mate, you're on 350 grand a week. I don't care if you're upset that your mate's not in the squad. Your mate's a prat. He shouldn't have put a tweet out. You know, if you're not playing well for Man United because your mate's not in the squad, you need to piss off, basically. That can't be the reason. Maybe he's carrying an injury. I don't know. Maybe he's just in bad form. Maybe he's an inconsistent player. I don't know what the body language problem is with Marcus Rashford, but it's very easy to solve. Just take him out the team and see how he reacts. He's not, as I say this morning, it's not Rashford United, it's Manchester United. And But I think it's really dangerous to individualise this on Bruno or Rashford or any other player, because to me, it's very, very clear that there are far bigger issues at Manchester United at the moment. Ten Hag proved he could manage consistently well when he was at a proper run football club. People need to realise he isn't the problem, says Warrior. They do not have the right mentality. Just look at Varane, Casemiro, Delo. They have something the others don't. Winning mentality they have learned, says Andreas. The player power the club has bestowed on Rashford is an issue, says Julian. And people thought Fergie time was just about Sir Alex looking at his watch, but it wasn't. It was because he built teams that would fight to the end, says Glenny Boy. Well, I don't disagree with that, but I think everybody's look. I think the problem is everybody, myself included, is looking for a quick fix, and nobody likes it when somebody says there isn't one. I don't want to make it about real life, but I've had situations where people I've cared about, you get that news that they're ill, and you're like, well, what are we going to do about it? And they've already been to the doctors, and it's like, there is nothing, and you're like, well, no, there is something we can do. We can fight it, and they're like, no, I might be able to. There's things I can do to elongate how long I'm here for, but in 5 years I'm not here. And that's a very serious message, I know, and I don't really want to bring that into football, but that is what we are. That Crystal Palace result yesterday was the moment for me where I was like, when I've said Mourinho out, when I've said Ollie out, when I've said get that player out, I've genuinely done it from a point of view where I thought, get him out, get a new manager in, we can turn it around. Get this player out, we can turn it around. I genuinely sit here in front of you tonight and I'm like, drop Rashford, we ain't going to finish in the top 3. Sack Ten Hag, we're not going to finish in the top 3. These things can be done, and if you want to do it, fine. But these things aren't going to change the general course of this football club. It's terminal. I've seen enough over the last decade. I know how the club is run. I know who runs it, and I know how every other club is run above us, and we are in big trouble. We are in very, very big trouble, and the path is set, and we will not get top four this season without another miracle. It was a miracle last year, and we're in big, big trouble, and that's the reality. But I still think there are some fans out there that think there's a fix. Like we thought there was a fix when we sacked Mourinho, or we thought there was a fix when we sacked Ollie, or we thought there was a fix when we sacked Moyes or Van Gaal. I don't think that fix exists anymore. I really don't. And it didn't exist anyway. And I wish I'd realised it sooner. Yesterday's performance made me as sad as Jadon Sancho when he has to get up at 8 in the morning, says Mortis. The sooner we heed Rangnick's advice, the sooner we can head in the right direction, says Kia. What would Fergie do now, says Omar. Mate, it's an irrelevance. You know, this clinging on to the past is an irrelevance. You know, what would Sir Alex do? What would Roy Keane do? Nothing. Because they're retired. Roy Keane doesn't play football anymore, and Sir Alex Ferguson doesn't manage football anymore. They're not the solution. They were the legacy, and it was fantastic, but they can't be the solution forever. And what would they do? Sir Alex Ferguson would not be able to win the league with Man United anymore. He might have been able to do it in the late noughties. Not anymore. Not anymore. Pep would wipe the floor with him now, because Pep has got everything he needs to be successful, and Sir Alex wouldn't have that. Only silver lining out of the season could be the stock price plummets as fast as the team goes down the table and the Glazers sell, says Jim. And can you say hi, Mark Jones? He cried yesterday at the game, says Peter. There we go. Hi, Mark. And Ten Hag needs to look at how Postecoglou transferred Spurs. He's done more in a month than Ten Hag has done in a year, says Matthew. My fear is Eric Ten Hag collapses before the Glazers leave. All energy should be on kicking the Glazers out. We have a cancer that needs eradicating, says Bingo. You know what? You know what though, Matthew? I've got to come back on that because I'm somebody probably like most of you that crave knowledge. Now, obviously, I'm in a position of power because I'm very knowledgeable. I'm taking the piss, but I very rarely, apart from when I do these shows, read or see something that makes me go, you know, that's interesting. And I'm sorry, Matthew, with all due respect, I don't respect that comment that Ten Hag needs to look at Ange Postecoglou and how he's transformed Spurs in a month, and Ten Hag hasn't done it in a year. It's flawed on two levels. One, Ten Hag took the worst Man United Premier League team ever and got third place and won a trophy. So you're wrong. You're wrong. Like, he literally worked a miracle last year. And two, Ange Postecoglou inherited a team that I think is actually better than Manchester United when it comes to their suitability to play Ange ball compared to the squad that Ten Hag's got and its suitability to play Ten Hag ball. And people will say, well, no, Man United have got a better squad than Spurs. But it depends about the components of your parts. And what I mean by that is, if I'm Ange Postecoglou, would I want to inherit Spurs or Manchester United to play the style of football I'm playing? And I think Spurs had better players that suit him rather than Man United. My case in point is his front three of Richarlison, Son and Kulusevski. They're quite technical players who can pass and move and make intelligent runs, and they're selfless players. I look at our front three, I'm not naming names, they're not. Could Ange Postecoglou get the same tune out of, let's say, Rashford, Sancho and Martial that he could out of Son, Richarlison and Kulusevski? I don't think he can. So he's done a great job at Spurs, but you can't compare one club with the other. In my opinion, that's not how football works. And I suppose the penny drop moment probably is, okay, you can criticise Ten Hag because we're not playing as good football as Spurs and Ange has only been there a couple of months. But I would bet you any money in the world that if Ange was in charge of Manchester United, he would not be doing what Spurs are doing right now, because we don't have the players to play that brand of football. There's two things Manchester United don't have. They don't have the work ethic consistently across 90 minutes, and they don't have the talent across 90 minutes to play the brand of football that the Brightons and the Spurs and the Arsenals and the Liverpools and the Man Cities play. I would love to be wrong, because I like a lot of these players. I like Rashford, I like Bruno. But the point I'm trying to make is, and I like Anthony, and I thought Sancho was a good player, but I absolutely have not seen the evidence that they can play possession, composed football in the final third. And I'm not just using Crystal Palace yesterday. I'm talking about the last 3 or 4 years. I've never seen us comfortably moving the ball around in the final third, moving off the ball, creating spaces. I mean, football's so bloody simple. I was watching another amateur game at the weekend, and I'm pulling my hair out. I'm like, these people are 14 and they're being coached and they're hitting long balls from the back. And I'm like, have you ever thought of just passing in space and then passing to the other person in space and making a run and creating space so that you can pass it to that person? I'm like, I don't understand how Manchester... I mean, I'm talking about amateur football there. If I'm thinking about that about amateur football, I don't understand how I can watch Brighton, Villa, Liverpool, Spurs play football and go, they're making it very simple and everyone knows what their job is. But I watch Man United and I'm like, we don't seem to know what we're doing. It's baffling. It really is. How can a manager that takes such care with players with injury allow Martinez to play or go abroad? It doesn't make any sense, or it's not up to Ten Hag, says Calhoun. Well, it doesn't make any sense how a manager that had Ajax playing good football hasn't got this team playing good football, other than the fact that they can't do it. I remember Ollie started well too. Judge Spurs after a year. On Ten Hag, I think he's a great coach, but man management can be better, says Shahin. I love Eric Ten Hag, but it's so frustrating to watch my team play. In your opinion, what needs to change in order to save the season, says Jack. And K-Flow says, again, what people also forget is the mix mash of supporting cast at United, coaching and medical staff. We have people from each era at the club. No club does that, says Kay. That's a great point as well, Kay. I've said this before. It was, you don't even need to do much. Ten Hag has probably brought in around 5 coaches, all in all. We retained a huge, like if you go to Carrington tomorrow on a training day, there'll be somewhere between, and I'm guessing here, there'll be somewhere between 20 and 60 coaches in various shapes and forms. And Ten Hag probably brought 4 or 5 with him, which means the vast majority of coaches and fitness department were already here. And people don't realise that. You get a new manager, you should get a whole new, makeover. That doesn't happen. Rangnick came in as the interim with him and a mate. And everyone else was Ollie's people. Darren Green says, wow, Mark spilling truth tonight. We really have been on this journey together, thinking managers and individuals were the problem. We as fans have all arrived at this point together now, says Darren. And it's not a nice place to be, Darren. It really isn't a nice place to be, because when Kay says, maybe it wasn't Kay, somebody else said, what do we do to get this season back on track? Well, that's Eric Ten Hag's job. It's not mine. But honestly, how do you get everything back on track? Literally, how do you get anything back on track? We're already off the track, is what I'm trying to say. What I remember 2 weeks ago saying, we've had a few games now, what's the expectation? And the expectation was probably 4th place and a domestic trophy. I think it was last Sunday night. We're changing our expectations by the week. I don't think we can get top 4, and I'm not interested in 5th or 6th. I mean, we've only had one. This is only game week 2 of the Champions League, and I've absolutely loved having Thursday night back. I ain't watching fucking Liverpool or Brighton. I've got no interest in Thursday night football. The only interest I ever had in Thursday night football was that my club was playing in it. And let's be honest, we're back playing Thursday night football next year. At best, we're playing Thursday night football next year. We might not even get that. And that's getting our season back on track. It's only October the 1st. And how do you get this season back on track? Look, the injuries are a problem. with all due respect to the backup players aren't as good as the first team players. The midfield, well, we haven't even got a left back at the moment. There's problems with the attack. We don't know how to play with a number 9. I want to talk about Hojlund in a few minutes. I really don't know. And I think the big key for me is that we were looking at this a couple of weeks ago, and we were saying beat Burnley, beat Crystal Palace, beat Brentford, beat Sheffield United, 12 points, probably gets us around 5th or 6th. And then by that time, hopefully we're playing a bit better, because then we've got to play Manchester City in the league, and then we've got to play Fulham away, and then we've got to play Everton away and Newcastle away in early December. So it's we're gonna face challenges, aren't we? I think we're gonna just go like that all season, to be honest. I think it's going to be like that. I think we'll win one week, we'll lose the next. We'll win the next 2, we might lose one again. I don't see any improvement with this team. And the reason I don't see any improvement with this team is because I think mentally they're already gone. We were speaking about the mental fragility at the start of the show. I think mentality-wise, they're already gone, because I think that they know that this season was meant to be about... It happened with Mourinho. We finished second, and it was meant to be the next season to try and challenge for the title properly. We started the season badly. The players realised they'd fell off, and they couldn't deal with it. And that's my problem at the moment. That's my fear at the moment. Is last season we won a trophy and we finished 3rd, and everyone was patting them on the back, saying they've done remarkably well in the first year under Ten Hag. But this year, they're doing bad. It's the worst ever start to a Premier League season. I don't trust these players mentally. I don't. So when people say, how do we save this season? They're going to have to do something that they've not really shown they can do. They're going to have to knuckle down and fight their way out of this issue to somehow salvage the season. But I think mentally, they're already gone, because I think they know they've fucked it. This is going to be a bad season. And I don't think, as that article says, when things are going wrong, they're weak mentally. And I think things have already gone wrong. So I worry about what's to come. I can't predict it. Should Erik ten Hag change the style of football which suits the team and players more, just to get better results, because these results cannot continue? Says Sammy. Well, I think he did that already. I think he did that against Burnley, Burnley had more possession than us. We ground out a result, but you can't be doing that at home to Crystal Palace. Something I'm not going to understand is why he had no one winger in Sancho that can play possession-based football and signed Anthony, because he didn't sign Sancho, Robin. Look, Jadon Sancho is an embarrassment. Maybe not him as an individual, but the scenario is an embarrassment. Hi, Mark. Going up to see United versus Luton in November. What do you reckon the score will be, says Jack? Well, I would have said a nice, comfortable win, but they beat Everton yesterday. The team collectively seems to overthink things in the final third, allowing the opposition to get back around them. Surely that's down to coaching, says Mike. But you know what? I think in relation... I've got to clarify that. The Jadon Sancho situation is an absolute stain on the football club. It is embarrassing everywhere. Like, I personally cannot understand why Man United have allowed this to play out the way it has. And they might say we're powerless, but come on. It's a very strong reflection on how weak we are as a football club with our own players, whereby we've basically got a 300 grand a week, £75 million signing, who is turning up to under 18 games and doing photographs with fans, but he's not turning up to matches and not apologising to the coach. It is an absolute embarrassment how this is being played out. It is childish beyond belief, and I'm furious about it, to be honest with you. I'm absolutely furious with it. He should be training with the first team, begging his way to get back into that team. You came to this football club, we took 12 months to get you. You cost 350 grand a week or 300 grand a week, £75 million. And we've got a situation where he's not training with the first team and, he's refusing to apologise. I'm just like, What is this? Is this like primary school, or is this meant to be the elite level of football? Because it's bloody embarrassing. It's embarrassing. And why are Man United just letting it drift? You know, if you don't apologise, it's another week of not training with the first team. It's incredible. And does it come down to player power? Is it having an impact on certain players like Marcus Rashford? I would bloody well hope not. But the whole situation's an absolute joke. And look, I don't sit here and think Jadon Sancho helps us beat Crystal Palace. He's had 2 years to show that he can do that, and he hasn't. I completely agree with why Ten Hag doesn't want to pick him, or didn't put him in the Arsenal squad, because clearly Ten Hag is the manager, and Ten Hag thinks there's a problem there. But the whole scenario is just bloody embarrassing, and it becomes more frustrating and more embarrassing when we're not winning games of football, because this isn't like prime Ronaldo, this isn't like prime Roy Keane, this isn't a player that if he wasn't refusing to apologise, we'd be doing well. It's just a player that's, not really performed in 2 years, that's creating another issue that we just don't need. Isn't it time United took a chance on more of the youth? Ironically, a situation like this founded Marcus Rashford, says the SP. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't know why people think that we can start playing. I know what people are thinking. Put Mabry in the midfield. Put Garnacho on the left wing. No, that's not. There's a documentary coming out on Netflix this week about David Beckham from the class of '92. United weren't struggling when they threw in David Beckham and he just suddenly saved the club. That doesn't happen with young players. Young players need to be nurtured in a team that's stable. We can't go, we can't go and start using young players. Oh, let's throw a load of young players in. We may as well. And then when we get stuffed by Everton and you say sack Ten Hag, you've ruined Ten Hag's career and you also ruined the young player's career. That's not how you do it. That is not a solution. I've seen a few people say it. In my opinion, throwing the youth in is just not how it's going to work. And our youth isn't even that good. Like, if you look at our youth teams, it's not that good. We're not that good. We've not been that good for a while. We might have a few individuals, but, they're not necessarily ready, and they shouldn't be thrown in as the saviour anyway. Chris, thank you very much for your super chat. I want to talk about a couple of things. I want to talk about Rasmus. I've seen a few people talking about Rasmus in the media, basically saying that he's struggling, maybe he's not up to the Premier League, and starting to sow the seed of flop. I think it's really important that, and we've got a lot on our shoulders as Man United fans at the moment. I think we shouldn't be individualising it. We shouldn't be saying Ten Hag out, and we've got to protect some of our players that realistically are not anywhere near the problem. Now, if you gave Rasmus 5 out of 10 yesterday, 6 being the average, so did I. Because he was never in the game and he was in the graveyard shift. And I can't give him a 6 or a 7 or anything like that just for effort with Manchester United. Rasmus's home debut was Brighton. He didn't have a shot on target in the whole game. Didn't have a shot in the whole game. If you're never going to get a better reflection of what being a Man United striker is than making your home debut in a Man United shirt and not having one chance. That's what you're up against. You can be Rasmus Hojlund or Erling Haaland or Lewandowski or Harry Kane. It doesn't matter how good you are as a striker at Manchester United. You get no service. Absolutely none. It is what it is. And, you can look at Rasmus's game and I can tell you that the amount of work he puts in at the front is incredible. Presses per 90, etc. Some people are interested in that. Some people aren't. I mean, look, the work is there. But Weghorst worked hard up front. I'm not going to champion a £60 million signing just because he runs around a lot up front. Weghorst did that. He has to be judged on goal scoring and his impact on games. And at the moment, his impact on games and goal scoring isn't very good. But that is not a reflection on the player. the problem is what we saw yesterday, and we've seen for a very long time. How many games do we create chances where you go, should have scored that? We should have scored that. I can remember one yesterday, the cross from Delo to Mason Mount. That should have been scored. That was a chance that we should have scored. But they're few and far between. Most of the goals we score are, like the Bruno one against Burnley. Amazing moments, but we don't create chances. And I think any criticism of Rasmus at the moment is again wrong on two levels. One, this is not a guy that's missing 2 or 3 sitters a game. This is not a guy that is getting good service. And also, he's 20 years of age. His breakout season was last year at Atalanta in Serie A. He's now leading the line for Manchester United. It takes a hell of a shoulder a hell of a head on a young pair of shoulders to deal with that. And he needs backing and he needs support. And he needs it from those players around him. Marcus Rashford's 25. He's meant to be a senior star player at that football club. He should be, wanting to nurture and develop that player. As should Bruno. As should Casemiro. As should everybody. And at the moment, we are letting him down. We are not providing with any service. We might need to bite that bullet in the fullback position. We need Amrabat in the midfield, says the Inquisition, 100%. Mark, I hate to say this about my club, but maybe not getting Europe is a good thing, as it will drop the value and hurt the Glazers in their wallets, as that's all they care about, says Martin. Yesterday's, I've done that one from Mortis as well. Look, how fanciful is it? I don't know. How likely is it? I don't know. But if we woke up tomorrow and the Glazers were selling the football club to Qatar, I don't think we'd give a shit about the Crystal Palace result, because short-term pain, long-term gain. Things would change like that. It's what needs to happen. It's a different future, but that's what we need to happen. But who knows when that will happen, if it will happen. We are in a... I hate to say it, but there has been seasons in the past. There were seasons where it started badly with Sir Alex, and I was like, we're not going to win the league this year. And we'd always find a way to go on a run. I remember a few times having a bad start to the season with Sir Alex. Not as bad as this, but considering with Sir Alex, it was win the league or nothing. I remember us having a couple of bad starts to a season, and we'd still find a way back, and you'd hope about it. I don't see a way back for this United side. I think there's too many teams that are better than us, and I think we've just got too many problems. We've got too many. I suppose what I'm trying to say is we've got too many problems to solve too far into this season. There's no transfer window. We've got too many injuries. We're not playing good football. The defence isn't a unit. The attack isn't a unit. And we've got major holes in the team because of injuries. I don't see how we suddenly turn this around. I'm not saying we won't beat Galatasaray on Tuesday and we won't beat Brentford next week and we won't beat Sheffield United. We could win the next 3 games. But we'll get turned over by Man City unless we can fall into the whole it's a derby, underdogs get the result. But in the long term, I don't see how this is going to get any better, really. I think that, that Martinez injury, as relevant or irrelevant as it may well be, it's huge. It's absolutely huge. If you'd said to me in the summer that by the start of October, Martinez would be out for another 3 months, Luke Shaw would be out for 3 months, Wan-Bissaka would be out for 3 months, and Malacia would be out for 3 months, I'd say, well, defence is quite important. That's why we were successful last year. So my best defence is Reguilon, Lindelof or Maguire, Varane and Delo. I know Varane's going to get injured at some point. How are we operating at a high level with that many injuries in our defence? And also we don't have De Gea anymore. It's Onana, which is transitional. So I look at that defence that was what our team was built on last year, and it's nothing like that. So yeah, I think it's hard at the moment to envisage how things get better, unless something magical happens and we suddenly start playing good football. But we haven't done that for a very long time. So yeah, it's difficult. My main concern is that Ten Hag walks himself into the sack. I really don't think the fan base is going to do it. I really don't. I think that I trust the fan base that even if we lost to Brentford, drew to Sheffield United and lost to Man City and lost to Galatasaray, I still think after all those results, the fan base would be, it's not acceptable, but the manager isn't the problem. I really do feel that the fan base is past all that shit of going manager out, manager out. I think everybody is aware that even if Ten Hag was the problem, it's not the right thing to do because it just elongates the Glazers getting away with it. We can't be sacking another manager and expecting a different outcome. But my concern is, if you do lose enough games, you do have to get the sack. I know what it is. We've lost 4 from 7, but I never stop hearing about it. And if he loses 5 from 8, then the media are just going to keep pushing that. So, and you do get to a point where you do have to be sacked. And my concern is, I don't want that to happen. I don't want it to happen, but it could. And I think if that happens, I mean, the funny thing is, last week and right now, they're pretty close to giving him a new contract. So, get your head around that. Get your head around that. Worst ever Premier League start, anybody could be sacked, but we're negotiating a new contract with him, which I think in one way is a good thing, but on another level is, if we keep losing games, what do you believe are the biggest mistakes that the Glazers have made during their stewardships of Manchester United? I mean, mate, the list is endless, but one of the biggest things that have always pissed me off about the Glazers is the jobs for the boys, giving people jobs who help them buy the club. I don't know why they didn't just recruit good people who know what they're doing. We overperformed last season. This season is another reality bite of where we are as a football club, says Bobby. And, oh, God, Kenny says, put Haaland in this team, he will starve. Amrabat in midfield, manages to enforce strong hand, start dropping other players and rotation in the squad. Players must learn to fight for their positions, says Kenny. Yeah, look, I mean, as much as I don't want it to be individualised, as I've said to you before, I think that, I'll be fair. I like both of these players. Would it be the end of the world if against Galatasaray he played Amrabat, Casemiro, Mount, and Garnacho, Hojlund, and Anthony, and dropped Bruno and Rashford? Whether they deserve to be dropped or not, it could be a real clever thing to try and bring balance to the team, but also to send a message that nobody is undroppable. I don't know whether that's fair to drop them both. I certainly probably wouldn't drop Bruno, but I'm thinking if you could play Amrabat, Casemiro and Mount would be the number 10 and Garnacho would be the winger. I think it would be more balanced. I think he probably should do it, but he ain't going to do it. He's not going to do it. And that's not because I blame Rashford or Bruno, that they happen to be 2 of my favourite players. But what's favouritism? It's Manchester United. Maybe if you drop Rashford and Bruno, they come back better players. Because if you come back the same, you get dropped again. I just think Pep Guardiola would drop Kevin De Bruyne if he wasn't playing well. He'd drop John Stones. He'd drop Erling Haaland. Arteta would do the same with Saka. If it's not reputational football, it's ability football, and I think it would send a strong message, and it would empower Erik ten Hag. And also, my big concern, what I read, is that he'll never drop Rashford because it could cause trouble in the dressing room. He'll never drop Bruno because it could cause trouble in the dressing room. And I'm like, that's exactly the reason to drop them. You can't ever pick a team because because you're scared. If you drop them and they cause a problem in the dressing room, then it's hello, Jadon, you've got a new friend who's not in the dressing room anymore. And if those players are going to cause trouble in the dressing room because they've been dropped, they're not Man United players. you don't start moaning and causing problems in the dressing room because you're not being picked. That's not Manchester United. Manchester United is an entity. It's a legacy. Manchester United is bigger than any player. If you're not being picked, it's because you fell short of the standard that you should be at. That's the message. I just don't know. I don't know whether he can do that or not. Double figures in losses this year. What are your thoughts, says Sean? Well, it's not good enough, Sean. It's not good enough. But are you surprised? Everybody I ever speak to about this situation, are you surprised? Are you surprised? No, not really. I wasn't surprised when we lost to Palace. I wasn't surprised when Burnley nearly got a draw out of us. But, it is what it is. Marching Bolivian says, Mark, love the United stand, but this video is all over the place. It's weak like the players. Yeah, thanks, mate. Don't need to watch it. And actually, this is what the Sunday show has been for about 10 years. We move around on different topics. And actually, if the show is, in your opinion, fragmented, it's because the club is. We're searching for solutions that actually don't exist because the club is terminally in decline. Maybe you don't understand those words, but that's where we are. We're terminally in decline and things aren't going to get better unless something massive happens, which we have no control over. So as fans, we're in this state of decline, which none of us are surprised about, but we're all very fed up with. And we're struggling for answers that we don't have and don't exist. It's a very frustrating time. We've been in worse situations, but sometimes, what's a worse situation? Anger, frustration because something ridiculous has happened, like Liverpool beating us 7-0, or losing to Crystal Palace and realising this is just what we are. I'd say what happened yesterday was more depressing than the Liverpool losses, because the Liverpool losses led to outcry. It's unbelievable. You can't lose to Liverpool like that. It's an absolute disgrace. And there was a reaction and everyone was like, this is bloody ridiculous. This can't happen. But yesterday, I didn't really see many people ranting. It was like, it's unacceptable to lose your four of your first 7 games. But this is where we are. This is what we've become. And the scariest thing of all is the thing that I've never wanted to happen is that we've now become accustomed to failure. It's become what we are. That standard that many of us fought against year after year over the last 10 of we are Manchester United, we should be fighting for titles every year. The Glazers have actually succeeded, haven't they? We're not doing that anymore. We are now going, this is what we are. This is who we are. We're Manchester United, a team that if we're lucky, we fight for the 4th place or 3rd place, sometimes 2nd, but miles off 1st, and then we're out of Europe again. And this is who we've become. The standards are just rock bottom of this football club, and it's been allowed to happen. Mark, this show is different class, actually addressing and clarifying what the real issues are, says PT. Thank you very much. And I know the Custis story is probably spin after yesterday, but we do need Qatar as soon as possible, says Mike. Look, everything changes if that happens, but does anyone think it's going to happen? Thank you, Mark. Great show as always during these endless difficult years, says Shahin. Yeah, and I also just want to say on the Martinez injury, if you've not heard about this, Fabrizio put it out about an hour ago. He's having another operation on his foot. So at the end of last season, obviously broke his metatarsal bone in his foot, missed all of the summer, came back for pre-season, played a couple of games at the start of the season, went on international duty, had pain in his foot. They've looked at it. It's not healed properly. He's got to have another operation. I mean, someone's got to take some responsibility. Someone's got to take responsibility there. It is not a coincidence that Man United get loads of injuries. It's not bad luck. It's not coincidence. It's been going on for 10 years. This was happening with Sir Alex in autumn. We were getting injuries in the autumn. We consistently pick up injuries, and that Martinez one is baffling. Now, look, some people might say, well, it's on Martinez. He knows his own body. Did he come back too soon? But there are such things as scans. Like, if he's been complaining about foot pain, I don't know. But basically, an injury in April that should have kept him out till August is now going to keep him out till Christmas. So he's been out from April till Christmas now. This is now turned into, a 6-month injury because it's been handled wrongly. And it should have been 3 months. And he's such a crucial player. And you know what? What annoys me is that when we bought Martinez, you got all the biased prats going, he ain't big enough. And then at the start of the season, he wasn't playing very well, even though he'd had a brilliant season last year. And those same idiots came out, ignored the last 12 months and went, I told you Martinez wasn't very good. He's playing with a broken foot. Martinez didn't start the season well. We know that. All of us saw it. He didn't play well at the start of the season. The lad's been playing with a broken foot. And, this is my whole point. Like, he got criticised before we bought him. He came in and was fantastic. He comes at the start of the season, has a couple of bad games, and everyone says, oh, Martinez has fell off. Not fell off, he's bloody injured. And that gets into people's heads that Martinez has fell off. He's actually injured. It's you just can't write it. Yesterday, I've done that one. Thank you very much. Anyway, look, I could go on all night, but we've got a game on Tuesday. We've got a new week tomorrow. We've got to beat Galatasaray on Tuesday, by the way. We have to. I don't know how good they are. Look, we'll do it on the preview, but I was looking at Galatasaray's recent results. It's hard to know how good Turkish football is. They drew with Copenhagen in the first leg, but they won yesterday 2-1. I was looking at their team. Tete, Zaha, Icardi, Torreira. I don't think they're a team that's... Mertens plays for them as well, off the bench. And Dembele's there as well, actually. But they're not necessarily a team that couldn't come to Old Trafford and beat us. And if we lose that, then not only are we not going to finish top 4 this year, we'll be back in the Europa League if we're lucky by February. So, it's going to be a very interesting game on Tuesday. And as Stu says, I'm not watching the Europa League if we drop into it. Not a chance. Yeah, we'll all go on strike. But look, interesting times. Brentford will be a challenge next Saturday. Galatasaray will be a challenge on Tuesday. And let's see what happens. But look, I applaud you for your maturity. I've been in this position before where it's not going well for United. You look at the chat, it's Solskjaer out, it's Jose out. I'm not really seeing that much against Ten Hag, and I applaud that maturity. I've not really seen too much, I've seen it in the past around Pogba and Martial. I'm not really seeing much in there about Bruno's or Rashford's or anybody else. And that, I suppose I take confidence in that it feels different this time. We're in a terrible position, and I think we're going to have a terrible season. But I think finally the fan base has figured it out that this is not about sacking a manager. It's not about individualising players. This is about the club is rotten at the top and it runs all the way down. And this is who we are. And unless it changes, and my message to the Glazers would be, why haven't you sold yet? Because this is a strong message. Whatever the Glazers think is going to happen with United, 6 billion, 10 billion in 2 years, you're dreaming. This is only going to get worse. As a Manchester United fan, my message to the Glazers is, what are you here for? You've got no money. We're in debt. You think Ten Hag's going to do a Sir Alex? You're having a bloody laugh. We're already not getting Champions League football next year, so figure that out on your balance sheets. We are not going to have a good season. There'll be no money next summer, and we'll have another shit season next year and the year after that. This club's fucked, lads. It ain't getting any better. So if you're hanging around for 6 billion or 10 billion or whatever it's you're hanging around for, you are deluded. This is not a threat to go. We want you to go. But honestly, straight up, what are you waiting for? Because there is no bounce back this time. We're done. We're finished as a football club. and your stock price and your value is going to go down, 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 down. This is it. It's done. We are what we are. So you need to cash out and go, because if you wait 6-12 months, we're going to be in a lot worse position than we are now, and the value you thought you were going to get is going to drop. Simple as that. Thanks everyone for watching. Let's hope they can see the wood for the trees. We'll be back tomorrow, of course, with the 10 o'clock show, previews. I think there's a press conference from Ten Hag as well. Take care, everyone. Speak to you all in a bit. You're all legends as well. Speak to you in a bit.